the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Thursday, 12th of January. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, under a winter weather advisory, it is -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -5. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A couple of weather systems are combining to give us a good deal of snow over the next 36 hours or so. Weather specialist Denise Andriachi says the light snow will continue through the morning and this afternoon, with about 5 centimeters expected through the day today. And that's only the beginning.
10 to 30 centimeters are possible by the time this multi-day storm threat wraps up. So those winter storm conditions are quite possible across the region. You need to give yourself extra time. Watch your driving.
This evening, as another system begins to affect the region, Ottawa will see up to 6 centimeters of snow that will get heavier overnight with up to 10 additional. Now, by Friday morning, which is tomorrow, and into the afternoon, the snow will taper off with another 5 centimeters through the day. Now, with the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Light snow this morning, periods of snow in the afternoon and evening, and then heavy at times for tonight. Winter storm conditions threaten the province today, and we will also watch for some mixed precipitation for Smiths Falls. For Ottawa, this is mainly a snow event. Temperatures are going to be right around the freezing mark, but in the zone where we just mainly see some snow, it's active for a couple of days, and then we are quiet and cool for the weekend with lots of sunshine in the forecast, but certainly active weather impacting your commute today, especially tonight and through Friday. The guaranteed high -1.
City News time 10:02. Over 25% of residential properties in Ottawa have made their declarations when it comes to the new vacant unit tax. Now, the mayor says while the system is working well, they are considering making some changes. City News reporter Chris Corris has the details.
As of earlier this week, over 82,000 properties had already signed up before the mid-March deadline, and the mayor says the online portal has worked well so far.
The number of people who have gone online and successfully registered their properties as being occupied is very high. It's happening a lot more quickly and with fewer problems than we anticipated.
But Mark Sutcliffe said he's still considering changes to the process moving forward and that they're monitoring resident feedback. He tells City News he's in support of the principle behind the tax, but understands the declaration aspect is not ideal. Chris Curry's City News.
U.S. authorities believe they know what caused the failure of a key communication system that grounded flights across the country Wednesday morning. Now, as we hear from Alex Bloomfield, it may accelerate long called for industry upgrades.
It was the first U.S.-wide ground stop since 9/11. 1,300 cancellations, 10,000 delays. The impact felt around the world. ABC's Justin Finch reports the Federal Aviation Administration is now saying the failure of the notice-to-air missions system appears to have been caused by a misplaced database file during routine maintenance.
A senior official says it appears an FAA computer engineer mistakenly replaced one file with another.
CNN aviation analyst Mike O'Brien says there have been calls to upgrade some flight safety technology for decades now.
It speaks to the overall culture there of allowing antiquated technology to persist.
The system that crashed Wednesday is critical for communicating about potential hazards in a flight path. Alex Bloomfield, City News.
I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it is Thursday, everybody, January the 12th. We certainly have lots in store for you today. Lots of different perspectives from our community and our country. We're going to be spending some time with the Director of Medicine at the Queensway Carleton Hospital today regarding the QCH's occupancy. They are over-occupied. They are looking for some more beds there. We want to talk to them about that a little bit later. We're also going to speak with Peter Tilley today. I don't know if you've seen this horrific video out of San Francisco where the owner of an art gallery is spraying a woman who is homeless with water outside of his gallery. It actually it does two things at the exact same time for me. It breaks my heart and it boils my blood. We're going to talk to Peter Tilley about this issue. We're going to be talking about some good news out of the Ottawa Mission as well today. I invited Greg McEachran and Chris Day to join us today. Greg McEachran is a strategic and commentator for Senior Vice President of the Government Relations with Proof Strategies. Hello, Greg.
Good morning.
And Chris Day is President of Winston Wilmot. Hello, Chris.
Good morning to you both.
Well, I was, as I do every night, I'm looking on Twitter, seeing what's happening, and I'm seeing this story coming out of British Columbia, Greg, about this BC RCMP officer who set up a website, a satirical website, poking fun at our Prime Minister, poking fun at LGBTQ funding, and it really kind of rocked my world, thinking, is this what we want our RCMP officers to be doing? Have you seen this story as well, Greg?
Yeah, I've seen the story. I saw it last night, and I was pretty disgusted by it. I think it doesn't seem like the individual wants to be an RCMP officer. He wants to be some sort of online presence. Oh, Joe Rogan, what have you wrought? All these wannabes, and I mean, you said satirical. Satire suggests funny. They're not funny, and woke has definitely gotten a bad rap in the last little while. Hardline conservatives want to mock it, but basically, in my point of view, it came around from realizing that making jokes about gay and lesbians, about immigrants, it's really lowest common denominator stuff. It's not really tough to punch down. And this is what this RCMP officer is doing. And the problem here is absolutely free speech. Sam, you have free speech, but you can't say anything you want behind that microphone. You can say it in public to a certain point. This person has free speech, but not as an RCMP officer. Because if you are someone from the gay and lesbian community, if you're an immigrant, if you're somebody from an Indigenous community, knowing that he has said these things and you call him for help, do you feel like you're going to get a fair shake? No, you're not.
And let's talk a little bit about that, Chris, because he doesn't come out and say that he's an RCMP officer, holding that, that Mountie position, which we all hold so sacred in this country. We should be holding it secret in this country. He doesn't come out and say it on the video, but knowing that, and Greg's made a really good point, knowing that that is the role in his community, especially now that it's been shared across the country and worldwide, it really does change things. Do you think, Chris, he should lose his job?
So I didn't see the whole videos. I saw snippets of them and news reports of them. I didn't see him making fun of 2S LGBTQ or Indigenous or immigrants. I saw him trying to poke fun, albeit not terribly funnily, at how the Trudeau government tries to cater to those groups and pander, in some cases, to those groups of society. That being said, I mean, you don't need an investigation to know that, that views that may be anti any of those groups or any group in society is inappropriate as an RCMP officer. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that RCMP officers can't just say what they want in the public sphere. It shouldn't take a genius to recognize that if there's a code of conduct or code of ethics in place, that you have to abide by those, whatever your role is in society. But that also, I mean, anyone who is an RCMP officer probably should know that RCMP officers and police officers generally should and are held to a higher standard in society. So, he's been suspended, hopefully without pay. There should be discipline for sure, in line with whatever's called for in any ethics code violation situation. But if this person wants to be a YouTube influencer, he should go be a YouTube influencer. Doesn't seem like he has the judgment to be an RCMP officer.
And we know, Greg, that through the so-called Freedom Convoy, we saw a number of police officers make donations to that cause, and they have been served up some disciplinary action as well. So this isn't new, Craig.
This is a whole issue around trust. Here in Ottawa, Google Ottawa Police and Ottawa Citizen and just come up with a number of stories, not even related to the convoy, of behavior that is very, very questionable. I think of an incident a few years ago where, an Ottawa police officer lost his car, in Kingston on a night out and reported it stolen. I mean, people looking into ex-girlfriends' information. So we have a big issue in Ottawa. I think there's a big issue with the RCMP. But we also know, from even before George Floyd, but George Floyd was kind of a pivot point on, training of police, the background, who wants to go into this, whether or not they're prepared for the job, why they want to be an RCMP officer or a police officer. There's a lot of questions, and there's the institution as a whole, and I haven't even touched on, sexual harassment of women in police forces. The institution as a whole has a lot of rebuilding of trust to do. And, the interviews, I saw, from the local commander in Trail, the mayor, they're unhappy with how this makes their community look. I'm sure, his fellow RCMP officers, he's been told that he has to work from home. I'm not sure how much of a punishment that is after, 2.5 years of everyone, getting used to that. But it's not a good look. And I echo, Chris's comments. If you want to, Chris hit the nail on the head. If you want to be a YouTube influencer, go do that. But you have a job that is quite a privilege in this country, and I think he's forgetting that.
And you also hit something, Greg, in terms of fellow officers. I mean, I can tell you right now, there are some incredible police officers, but when these things happen, it sheds a negative spotlight on all police officers. It shouldn't do that. But unfortunately, that's what ends up happening, Chris. And we think about people that have served this community in this country, and it's that whole bad apple thing. You get a couple of bad apples, and the whole bushel looks like it's ruined, and that's not the truth. But it really is heartbreaking for some of these officers hearing this news today.
Well, I can tell you as a member of the police family, because my partner is a Gatineau police officer, that indeed, whenever these things happen, the officers themselves feel it deeper than anyone else because they know that they're held to a higher standard. And most of them, like the vast majority of them, try not only to meet the public standard for policing, but exceed it. Right. And whenever something like this comes out, and it seems disproportionate to the RCMP for some reason, and, we can talk about the cultural issues that exist in the RCMP and how little has actually been done to improve that. But, when you look at police forces across the country, whenever their, brothers or sisters do something dumb, because ultimately police officers are people and no one's perfect, but when they do something really dumb and unforgivable, it does cast a shadow over the entire institution of policing, and it makes it frankly more difficult for people and people who are trying to do their best in a very, very difficult job every single day to protect communities and serve really challenging populations in a lot of cases. To do that job precisely for the reasons that Greg mentioned, it is a sacred trust between police and citizens, and things like this undermine that.
Thanks for that perspective as well, Chris Day and Greg McEachern. We call on you. We give you about 5 minutes notice usually, and you're both very good about coming on. Thank you so much for spending time with us today on City News.
Anytime.
Have a great day.
Greg McEachern, of course, is with Proof Strategies, Senior Vice President of Government Relations. Chris Day, President of Winston Wilmot. When we come back, we're heading to the QCH. We're going to find out how many beds they're in need of. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken. Slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong. Our mission, unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's no secret that there are challenges in our healthcare system. We wanted to go to the Queensway Carleton Hospital today to talk about occupancy challenges. Leanne Learmonth joins us now, Director of Medicine for the Queensway Carleton Hospital. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, Sam. Good morning.
I'm seeing some communications out of the QCH talking about the fact that you're overrun with patients, and I know you want to give them all great care. Give us a sense of what you're seeing in the hospital.
Actually, today looks just slightly better than we have during the week earlier. We're at 105% occupied today. We have several patients waiting in the emergency department, 20 in total. What our biggest pressure seems to be our mental health population right now. We have 24 mental health beds occupied, and we have 11 other patients waiting to come into those beds. So that definitely is our biggest challenge right now.
And talk to us a little bit about the mental health unit, because there's been some changes there recently, Leanne, right?
Absolutely. We opened our brand new unit in the middle of December. We've been waiting, since 1976, really, to have a new unit. And so the team's very excited, and it's a state-of-the-art place for patients to rest and recover. So we have 24 beds there. We do have the capacity to open 4 more beds, except we're really challenged right now with our staff. We have many off sick and we're not able to expand that service right now. And we're seeing some really sick, complex patients. January tends to be a very tough month anyway for most of us, and we're definitely seeing that in our mental health population.
Thanks for sharing that, Leanne. And I just want to say that Barbara Crook, of course, and Dan Greenberg were a big part of that mental health unit, and an infusion of their generosity has made that unit possible.
Oh, absolutely. We're so grateful for their leadership and their passion and commitment to helping us achieve that unit. And the patients love it. It's bright. There's great areas for them to do group work and decrease their anxiety and have their meals together and feel safe and comforted. We had one patient say, I feel like I can sleep well tonight. So it's a great spot.
That's amazing. So I'm hearing the pinch of your staff, which are experiencing their own illness and not able to come in, but yet the community coming in droves and trying to manage all of that. Where do people go? Are they literally sitting in emergency waiting for their name to be called?
Yes, if they're really sick, we do take them, as urgently as we can, for sure. We do that really good assessment as they walk in our doors. And yes, some people are waiting a little bit longer than they need to. We do definitely encourage people to go to our assessment center over on Draper if they, are not as acutely ill as they need to come to the emergency department. We have capacity there to do an assessment and do a COVID swab if needed, for sure. So that's definitely a good option for people. But de-emerge is open 24/7, so we never turn anybody away. But just realizing that there is at times longer waits.
And Leanne, let's talk a little bit about the Draper Avenue location. Who should be going there? Is this just for COVID?
Well, anybody with sort of respiratory challenges, so, maybe feeling a little bit short of breath or having that cold that they're not sure it's getting better, they can go there to see a physician and, have the COVID swab done. That's important too.
Are there delays in terms of surgery?
We have not had to cancel any surgery at this point in time. There's been a backlog for sure since COVID, so it's so important that we work through that backlog and get our priority cases done. So we have, I believe there's 10 today that are on our emergency list, but that's, a fairly standard number. And we have the ability to open an extra operating room if we need to. We're not needing to do that right now, so we're able to do our booked cases as well as some of our emergency cases every day.
Now, of course, I have to ask you about the mom and baby ward, because I gave birth to my beautiful daughter there about 15 years ago. How are moms and babies doing these days?
They're doing well, actually. We've had a little bit of a lull, I think, over the Christmas holidays, which is a little bit unusual. We tend to see a bit more of a baby boom, but we have been busier today. There's 18 patients down there and 18 babes, obviously, but they're doing quite well in the grand scheme of things.
So what's the message? If someone's listening to us right now, what would you want them to know about the Queensway Carleton Hospital and the care you're giving now?
We're doing our darn best every day, for sure. Anybody coming into our care, the staff are extremely dedicated. We're asking a lot of them. We continue, some of them work double shifts, come in for overtime. We're challenged with some units having, staff that are unwell and not able to come to work. But for the people that we serve, we're still here. We really want them to come when they're sick. We really want them to use other options if they have them, if they're not, needing an emergency department or acute care bed, for sure. But we'll still continue to greet them with a smile and do everything we can to help them heal and recover.
It certainly is a challenging time. Are you seeing the numbers of COVID stabilize, or are you seeing them on the rise right now? Where does that stand?
We have 16 patients today in our care that are COVID positive. We have one unit that is on an outbreak, which is not unusual. So the 16 COVID patients is actually down. We were up over 20 earlier in the week. So, and that number is fairly static for the most part over the last couple of weeks. And we do know that our wastewater is up for the COVID testing results this week. So there's more in the community, and we have to encourage people to continue to wear their mask and wash their hands and stay home if they're unwell.
Mm-hmm. And what's it been like, Leanne, in terms of the paramedic offloading and the backlog we've seen there in the past?
Yeah, it continues. Most days we have a few ambulances waiting for offload patients. We are advocating for more support there, resources to be able to support those offload patients so we can get the crews back on the road as quickly as possible. So there's some days it's many hours, and other days and certain parts of the days it's not so bad. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a tough one for sure, because we know our ambulances need to be out on the road, but we have to be able to safely take that patient into our care. And depending on what else is going on in the department, it doesn't happen as quickly as it should sometimes.
Well, I think unless you've been in those bays and you see what that is, I don't think you really appreciate how much better that is than it used to be. I broke my ribs in 2020, and I absolutely refused to go to the hospital. I waited way too late, and then we had to call an ambulance. So my point of telling you the story is that I really appreciated. Even as much pain as I was in, I was like, this is a really good setup here, because you're not bringing people outside, and it was really well done. So that expansion of the emergency room, although done a number of years ago, the benefits are still there for sure.
Definitely, and we could expand again easily. There's some days, we have only 22 stretchers in the emergency department, and, with 20 patients admitted there today, that doesn't leave a lot of space for our team to operate. And I was down there one day last week, and I thought it was more like a MASH unit, right? Wow. There was people everywhere, and tough conditions to work. And again, the team is fantastic down there to look at, the extremely sick right away when they come in, and to make space if we need it, and to still do that good care that we need them to do.
Leanne, I really appreciate your time, and take care of you and take care of everybody there at the QCH, okay?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Leanne Learmoth joining us today, Director of Medicine, a very big job there at the Queensway Carleton Hospital. Appreciate her time today. When we come back, we're going to talk about that possible strike with CRA. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, 12th of January. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -5. And here's what's making news this hour. A winter storm warning is in effect for much of the region, expected to last until tomorrow. City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi telling us accumulated snow is possible today, up to 20 to 30 centimeters of snow in the forecast by the end of the storm tomorrow. Heavy snow is also possible tonight through early Friday. You're advised to pack your patience on your commute tonight, through the day tomorrow, and plan to spend extra time to get to your destination. And Ottawa police is reporting a 13% increase in the number of hate incidents in the city in 2022 when compared to 2021. The force released the stats on hate crimes this morning. It shows 377 incidents were investigated, including 300 criminal incidents and 77 hate crime incidents. There are 51 people facing 174 criminal charges, with 5 of them including formal hate crime offenses. And the force says it believes hate crimes continue to be underreported. Airline and airport representatives, along with the federal transportation minister, are set to testify today at an emergency meeting of the House of Commons Transportation Committee. The committee is examining what went wrong during the disastrous holiday travel season and attempting to determine what might be done to avoid a repeat. A panel featuring Air Canada, WestJet and Sunwing Airlines representatives is set to kick off the meeting, and the transportation minister is scheduled for an hour of testimony this afternoon. City News Time, 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for being with us here on City News. A little bit later, we're going to get caught up with David Phillips, senior climatologist with Environment Canada. He's going to give us a rundown of what we can expect in the next 36 hours with Mother Nature. So you'll want to stay for that interview. We wanted to get caught up today with Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Hello, Franco.
Hey, how are you?
Good. This time of year, I start thinking about my taxes. I'm thinking, where's all my charity receipts? What do I need for my business? This year, our taxes may look a little different. Franco, tell us why.
Well, before I do that, I just have to say I've got my blood pressure up this morning hearing about this story where you have these union bosses who are representing employees at the CRA who are threatening strikes. Now, my blood is boiling, and I know this is a big story here in Ottawa, but I think many Canadian taxpayers outside of the capital across the country are going to be furious when they hear what's going on. Not only is this selfish, but I dare say that these union bosses are holding Canadian taxpayers essentially hostage for higher pay. And I don't say that lightly, and here's why I say it. They're threatening strikes just before and during tax season. So here's essentially the threat. If the government doesn't pony up more money, taxpayers aren't going to get their money back at tax time. And some of the demands that have been reported from these union bosses are outrageous.
And give us a sense of what you're hearing, Franco.
Well, I just read one of the stories today from Bloomberg News. And they're saying that the taxation workers, or more precisely, the union bosses who represent the taxation workers, are demanding a 30% wage increase over 3 years. A 30% wage increase over 3 years. I had to read that sentence 5 times just to make sure that I was understanding that correctly. But that's not the only story that we've heard from government union bosses demanding just outrageous pay increases. We saw an earlier story, I believe it was from September, talking about the PSAC, one of the unions involved here, demanding up to 14% annual compensation increases.
And is it all just about money? We know some of it, we've heard as well, Franco, is about the back to the office notion that Minister Mona Fortier from the Treasury Board put forward just before Christmas. Is it all wrapped up in that, or is this just money in your mind?
You know, that's a good question. And I'm not at the bargaining table, so I don't know exactly what's going on with all of their demands. But the real issue for Canadian taxpayers is the increase in pay, is the money, right? Because let's look at the fundamental unfairness here. Eventually, at the end of the day, these burdens will be paid by these so many Canadians who over the last 2+ years struggled greatly during the pandemic, struggled greatly with government restrictions, right? Outside of government here in Ottawa, so many people lost their job, took significant pay cuts. Many small business owners, whether it was the restaurant down the stream, whether it was the gym owner, were worried that their savings couldn't keep the lights on during the pandemic and the restrictions. And now their tax burden will have to go up to meet these, like I said, ridiculous union demands. And the insult to injury is this, is that they're doing this, they're trying to pull this stunt right before tax season, okay? When so many Canadians who are already struggling to make ends meet want some of their money back from the government during their tax return.
Well, and now... Yeah. Because, Franco, people depend on that, right? They work their whole year around getting that refund within a 4 to 6 week period.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And let's not forget here, over the last 2+ years with the rising inflation that so many Canadians are struggling with, there's people who are worried about missing their meals. There's people who are worried about missing their meals. And I hate to be so frank about this, but many government employees weren't even worried about missing pay raises during the pandemic, okay? These are just the facts of the matter. We got an access to information request back from the federal government that showed 312,000 federal government employees received at least one pay raise during the pandemic years of 2020 or 2021. Now, to put that into perspective, as of March 2021, there were 319,000 federal employees. So again, you had many, the vast majority of federal government employees receiving pay raises. Now their union bosses, not the employees themselves, but their union bosses are demanding just outrageous pay raises from taxpayers. And if taxpayers don't pony up, they're threatening that we're not going to get our money back.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about PSAC. We know that in the past, that in many ways, PSAC and the deliberations and negotiations with them have set the pace for others. We can't expect that everyone's going to be getting a 10% pay increase.
Well, that would, at the end of the day, a 10% increase across the bureaucracy would mean tax increases, and not just small tax increases. They would mean massive tax increases, okay? As I said, that news article from Bloomberg, right? 30% wage increase over 3 years. So let's say that's a 10% annual increase. Well, the bureaucracy in Ottawa costs about $55 billion a year. The parliamentary budget officer had that estimate. They say that the compensation for each full-time employee is about $130,000. Okay, so what is a 10% increase on top of $55 billion? That's another $5.5 billion hole in the budget. Well, the only way the government makes that up is by a legitimate tax increase, a very big tax increase. Let me give you an example. The government would have to hike an income tax rate by more than a full percentage point, or it could raise the general and small business tax by 2 points. So these demands by the union bosses would mean higher taxes for the people who lost their job, took pay cuts, maybe lost their small business, or have their small business hanging on by a thread. And to me, that's just fundamentally unfair.
But this is just one department, Franco, right?
Well, this isn't the whole government. That's correct. What we're talking about today is the CRA, right? The taxation employees. But to your earlier point, let's not pretend like one agreement in one department or one area doesn't set the tone for the others. Because, look, if the CRA bureaucrats are getting huge raises, their colleagues in other departments are going to be looking and being like, hey, what the heck?
Mm-hmm. So what should Canadians do? I always, on this show, I like to give people something to do. What's the action here, Franco?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for covering this story, because the first thing that we have to do is just bring more attention to it. And another thing that we have to do is we have to call our members of parliament. So if you have that small business, whether you're the gym owner, maybe you're a mechanic, you work at a shop there, and you're saying this is ridiculous, right? I haven't seen pay raises in years, not to mention 30% wage increase over 3 years. You got to call your member of parliament, because so far I haven't heard a single, maybe I've missed it, but I haven't heard a single member of parliament say anything about this. And between you and I, here's why I think members of parliament haven't spoken out, because they themselves have taken 3 pay raises since the beginning of the pandemic.
3? I knew about 1. So walk us through the 3.
They've taken 3 pay raises since the beginning of the pandemic. So the pandemic, when did it start? Oh, my goodness. It feels like it's been going on for 20 years.
March of 2020, right.
But yeah, since March of 2020, they've given themselves 3 pay raises. Every single year, member of parliament pay goes up on April 1. So that means this April, they're going to be collecting their 4th pay raise since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, many member of parliaments are throwing up their hands in the air saying, well, what do you want us to do about it? These are so-called automatic pay raises. But that doesn't pass the sniff test, because the government could pass legislation to stop these automatic pay raises. That's exactly what happened in response to the 2008-09 recession. They froze the pay. They stopped these automatic pay raises. Plus, we've seen politicians across the globe either cut their own pay or stop pay raises.
Mm-hmm. So walk us through some of this timing, Franco. When are we expected to see some movement?
Okay, yeah, great question. So the union boss is representing the CRA employees. They say they could be holding strike votes beginning at the end of this month, and I believe it could go either through April or towards April. And the reason of the timing and why that's so important is essentially that's their threat, right? Because Canadians file their income tax returns somewhere between, I believe it's February the 20th and May the 1st. So they're essentially threatening strike votes right before and during the time that Canadians are relying on getting some of their own money back through tax returns. Mm-hmm. So the timing here is so crucial, and that's why at the start of the segment I said that they're essentially holding Canadian taxpayers hostage. And if we don't pony up more money, they're threatening strikes at a time that can inflict so much pain to so many Canadians who are already struggling.
Well, when we think about the people of Ontario going through and seeing everything happening with Bill 124 and how, nurses are really struggling, and then we've seen what happened recently with education workers, I mean, obviously that's a provincial story, but at the same time, it just talks about the environment that we're in. There's only, I don't need to tell you, Franco, there's only so much money.
There is only so much money. And here's the thing, is that the government isn't exactly flush with all this cash, right? Especially the federal government. It doesn't have all this cash lying around. The federal government is more than $1 trillion in debt. If you have a baby born today, for example, that young little boy or girl would already be $30,000 in federal government debt. So it's not like the government has a bucket of cash here lying around to pay for exorbitant demands by union bosses. That's just the truth of the matter. When the federal government, any government is more than $1 trillion in debt, it can't just spend like crazy. It has to make decisions. So one way or another, if they give in to these huge demands by the union bosses, then they're going to have to find significant savings or significant cuts somewhere else in the budget, or they're going to have to raise taxes quite significantly.
We'll be following this story, obviously, very closely. Franco, let's stay in touch, okay?
Well, thank you so much for having me on today.
Appreciate it. Franco Terrazzano joining us today, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to come back with Peter Tilley, CEO of the Ottawa Mission. We're going to have a very interesting discussion with Peter. We're going to be talking about something at the Ottawa Mission, which is absolutely amazing, a very good news story. And we're going to be talking about a story out of San Francisco, which is absolutely heartbreaking. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum.
$20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I don't know if you're like me, but as I watched this video, I don't even know if you've seen it or not, but there's a video circulating from an art gallery owner in San Francisco. And this video I think it'll do two things, because this is what the two things it did to me. It boiled my blood and it broke my heart. This video is of a gentleman standing there with a hose. He's sort of washing down the street a bit. And he directs this hose at a woman who is homeless. And you can hear in the video very, very faintly, you can hear her saying, "No, no, no, don't spray me." And he's spraying her and saying, "Move on, move on." And it absolutely is heartbreaking to see. And I thought of Peter Tilley, CEO of the Ottawa Mission, when I watched that, because Peter, you know, we just know how vulnerable people are when they're homeless. And it is frustrating for business owners to have people sitting outside of their store. But this was so inhumane, Peter.
It's sickening, Sam. I can't think of a more sickening image that I've seen in some time. It's just his disdain, how he's elevating himself above her, this poor, distraught homeless person. And, you know, if we're to be judged on how we treat those who are less fortunate than us, you know, God forgive this man. It's just disgusting to see. And, you know, talk about wanting, if ever, a time to go give someone a hug. That poor woman, but for the grace of God go I. He should try and remember for a second whatever footsteps she's walked to lead her to this point in her journey in time, her journey in life. I don't think she really wants to be there outside his gallery.
And Peter, for him to go on media and sort of say, yes, that was me, and try to defend it, saying that she has a lot of mental illness, and that was his defense. I was like, what are you talking about? This woman is obviously very, very mentally ill from all of the things that he had spoke about the challenges that he's seen with her, and saying, I have been trying to help her, and I was frustrated, and nobody will help me. Well, it does not give you anyone the right to treat someone like that. You wouldn't do that to a dog, Peter. I mean, it was just, it absolutely incenses me. I don't understand it, and he's still trying to defend himself.
No, and his reckoning, I'm sure, is coming. That's where this powerful vehicle that is now social media, it has its shortcomings and fallbacks for certain when things get taken out of context, but there's no taking anything out of context here. There's no misquote here. There's no something said off the cuff. This is a blatant disregard for another human being and their journey in life, and a human being apparently, from what we're seeing in this image, totally lacking in compassion for others. And I think his day of reckoning will come for those who may have supported that gallery in the past. I think those days are behind him, hopefully.
Well, I think his day of reckoning has come, and I'll tell you why, Peter, is because I looked it up yesterday, and I reached out to him. He did not pick up. He's not picking up anybody's calls. And when I looked today, it says that gallery is temporarily closed.
Yeah, there we go.
It really is, and it takes a moment for each and every one of us to think, am I the person with the hose? Am I the person sitting on the ground? Because that can flip in a second, as you and I both know.
I remember a story of a CEO, one of the most successful ones of a Western-based sports and entertainment group, and they just got him one day. He was babysitting a neighbor's dog and took it out for a walk. And in the elevator, he got fed up and he kicked the dog. Well, he forgot there's cameras in the elevator. It went viral. This is over a decade ago. And this very successful CEO of a chain of businesses up the northwest coast of the States in Canada was removed from a position. I think it was about a $11 million a year job or something. So, it's just what you always remember. Just try and be that person behind closed doors, or that you are in front of the doors, in front of the limelight, and terrible.
And the way that the video is shot, it's horrible that this happened at all. But I am grateful that we don't see this person's face from the perspective of, I'm hoping that this person gets to keep their privacy, because as you and I both know, and I can count up to probably 100 of the amount of people when I worked at the Mission that would say to me, I just don't want my family to know I'm here. I just don't want my past colleagues to know that I found myself here, and please keep my privacy private. And I just really I've just been thinking a lot about that perspective of it as well, Peter, because she certainly wouldn't have asked to be front page news.
Yeah, somebody's daughter for certain, possibly somebody's sister, possibly somebody's mother. And yes, you're right, Sam. You know our business here because you were here for years. How many times we have to deal with the sensitivities with the media, well-intentioned to come in and film a story, but always a reminder that no, please don't film the people in the background. For just that reason, you said, "Hey, Mom and Dad, look at me. 5 years since leaving home. Here I am at a homeless shelter in downtown Ottawa." And in her case, here she is on the street, and how much that person took away her dignity, her hope, her outlook. Just, you're not even worthy. I'm going to shower you off here and spray you with a hose. like a dog, move along. Just what that did for her dignity that day, her hope, her sense of justice and fairness in the world, terrible.
My only hope is that she, the attention for this does get her the help, and maybe she is, taken in, and hopefully she does get the mental health supports that she needs. One of my biggest joys, Peter, when I did work at the Ottawa Mission, is to sort of stand quietly at the back and watch the Ottawa Mission Food Students Training Program graduation take place. Because I had the privilege, as you do, and so many at the Mission, to see people come into that food training program and how different they are so many weeks and months later. It really is incredible to watch the transformation. And today is that big day.
So looking forward to this. Chef gives us the notices, about a month in advance when he's chosen the date. Have to do it in the dining hall, even though we've moved Chef Rick's and the training program to the former Rideau Bakery at 384 Rideau Street. There's just no room. And we want the family members of these graduates to attend like any graduation. And what a celebration, 4 months of hard work, hard labor, hard education. They learn all the principles that are taught in many of the collegiate institutions on culinary art. And these people are graduating. I think Chef told me this morning 11 out of 12 of them have now graduated into jobs, now have jobs. So a celebration for us, a celebration for them, and mostly our chance to recognize the students. But for me, it's just this visionary, this incredible human being, this man of compassion who back in 2004 had a vision when he realized people coming from our sector, new immigrants to Canada, new Canadians, refugees, people needed a chance, and Chef took a look at his own journey in life, and instead of getting to the top of the hill, somebody was on the streets of Kingston at the age of 14 and 15, and instead of rising to the top of the hill and saying, I'm here alone now, and looking forward, he looked back, and he's decided to pull and bring other people up that hill with him, and he's, over 200 graduates placed into jobs over the last nearly 2 decades. Amazing human being, amazing training program, and just an amazing social enterprise that he runs through Chef Rick's, a catering social enterprise that supports itself, plus the other programs of the mission.
Well, there's usually not a dry eye in the place at some point during the graduation, so I'll be thinking about all of you today. And Peter, although we talked about a very disturbing subject at the beginning today, and talking about the way that this woman who finds herself homeless was treated, I'm hoping today we see the good and how far people from this program have come, and maybe someday they're cooking a meal for you. You just never know, right out in the community. So we appreciate your time today.
You're right, Sam. You wait till Tatiana, one of the Ukrainian refugees who's come over here from that war-torn country and found a second chance here. Wait till she speaks as one of our valedictorians. It's going to be a touching moment.
Wow. Well, if she wants to come on and join me, you just let her know. We'd happen to have her on.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I'll set that up for sure.
Excellent. Peter Tilley, CEO of the Ottawa Mission, appreciate his time today. When we come back, we're going to talk about that truck corridor and how challenging it is for the residents of downtown Ottawa, particularly, ironically, near the Ottawa Mission. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods atop.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, 12th of January. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a winter storm advisory, it is -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -4. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We're in for another prolonged snowfall in Ottawa. And before this is done, late day tomorrow. City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi says the worst of it will be overnight tonight.
Tomorrow morning's commute will be really impacted because the bulk of the heavy snow is expected to fall late tonight and through the pre-dawn Friday.
And as temperatures continue to rise, there could be more of a mix of rain and snow for Smiths Falls later today, but then snow overnight. In Ottawa, this is a snow event with up to 30 centimeters of snow. Now, with the weather forecast for today for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Winter storm warnings now in place across Ottawa and Smiths Falls. 20 to 30 centimeters is what we're expecting. Definitely the heaviest snowfall is going to begin later tonight and into Friday afternoon. We're still dealing with the active weather. Now, there are some areas that could experience brief freezing rain or some mixed precipitation. Temperatures are going to hover around the freezing mark, so Smiths Falls is included with that risk, whereas areas like Ottawa likely just sticking to snow, but we'll keep an eye on it. The guaranteed high today, -1.
City News time is 11:01. The Queensway Cotton Hospital says it is overrun by patients and currently running at 113% over capacity. Leanne Lumont, Director of Medicine at the Queensway Cotton Hospital, telling City News the biggest pressure is with the mental health population.
We have 24 mental health beds occupied, and we have 11 other patients waiting to come into those beds. So that definitely is our biggest challenge right now. We do have the capacity to open 4 more beds, except we're really challenged right now with our staff. We have many off sick, and we're not able to expand that service right now.
She advises that if you're not acutely sick and do not require emergency care, you're encouraged to visit the assessment center at 2625 Draper Avenue to see a physician. But the ER at the Queensway Cotton remains open 24/7 if you do need immediate care. And right now in Ottawa, the Federal Transportation Committee is beginning its investigation into the travel chaos over the holidays that left hundreds of passengers stranded over or stuck on a train. It's the first of multiple hearings to examine the fiasco. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
Executives from Sunwing, WestJet, and Air Canada kick off testimony, and MPs will be looking for answers on what went wrong. Just ahead of the meeting, NDP transport critic Taylor Backrack says, "We know winter weather sparked some of the problems, but what's of concern is how the airlines acted after the snow and ice hit."
There was a failure to uphold even the most basic expectations around customer care and client satisfaction.
Sunwing left passengers stranded in Mexico. Other airlines had long tarmac delays, and Via Rail had passengers stuck on a track for more than 20 hours. Sunwing and Via have apologized. But Conservative MP Dan Muse says department officials and the Transport Minister will also be on the hot seat since they're responsible for air passenger rights.
Why is this continually happening? No more excuses.
Where are the results? Minister Omar Al-Gabra has told City News he plans to improve the Air Passenger Bill of Rights with legislation this spring. Via Rail impacted travelers and other experts are expected to testify at the next hearing, but a date has not yet been set. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're going to be checking in with David Phillips today. He's the senior climatologist with Environment Canada to get a sense of what's happening weather-wise here in the capital, of course, and the Ottawa Valley. So stay with us for that. I wanted to also give parents a little bit of a warning. So the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority is letting you know that they have not canceled service today. There's some rumors rumbling around. There has not been a cancellation of services today. Some buses were canceled on a one-off basis, and I can tell you that one of them was my daughter's bus, so I know that. But certainly from an overall perspective, the transportation is going to be moving for children and buses this afternoon. Tomorrow is a whole other day, of course, and we'll be checking in with OSTA early in the morning and letting you know if buses are running. Speaking about buses, let's talk a little trucks. We wanted to spend some time today with Linda Collins, University of Ottawa professor, Centre for Environmental Law and Global Sustainability. Hello, Linda.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. We spoke a little bit earlier this week with Stephanie Plante, councillor for Rideau Vanier, regarding the truck corridor, which goes through our beautiful city, causing a lot of challenges for residents and businesses, nonprofit organizations. Linda, do you know much about this particular incident or this particular issue in the city?
Yeah, our clients, Friends of the Earth Canada and Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, have been concerned about traffic-related air pollution for many years. And one of the things that has become clear recently in the past 5 years or so is that truck emissions are one of the most dangerous kind of air pollution. So they really pose a threat to life and health in this neighborhood. And unfortunately, the neighborhood is particularly vulnerable because we have homeless shelters with people gathered on street level for hours every day, a daycare, university buildings, and condos. So our clients felt like, with a new mayor and a new master transportation plan underway, this is the time to finally take action on this problem.
Mm-hmm. And it's so true when you're down there, because I've been there. I worked with the Ottawa Mission for close to a decade. Okay. When you're down there, there's nowhere for those fumes to go because the buildings are so tall. They really do sort of settle, like you were saying, at street level. And we were hearing from some residents that were wanting to kind of hopefully move this issue forward, that even just, a truck going by can make them ill for the whole day. And I can tell you, I felt the same way, Linda. It really can affect people and give them instant headaches.
Absolutely. And if somebody has an underlying condition like asthma or a cardiac condition, it could actually send them to hospital. Then you have the long-term effects for people that are exposed to this for months and months and years and years. And, unfortunately, diesel emissions increase the risk of everything from cardiovascular disease to cancer. So this is a well-understood public health threat. And it's actually quite shocking that the city of Ottawa has routed heavy trucks right through its highest density neighborhood. And we say it's also illegal.
Well, and it's challenging, too, because one of those streets, King Edward, is maintained by the province. So the issue even becomes more complicated, right? Because now you're dealing with not only the municipal level, but you're dealing with the provincial level of government.
And we've got the NCC, and we've got the federal government. Right. And I think this is part of the reason why there's been a lot of talk and study about this issue for decades, but no action. And what we're saying is that the city of Ottawa has a legal obligation to take action right away. For example, immediately, like next week, they could begin air quality monitoring in the trucking corridor. The province has an air quality monitoring station, but it's well outside the trucking corridor, and it's not telling us anything about the safety of the air for people who live with these trucks. machines for measuring air quality are readily available. They're inexpensive. The city could be doing this and at a minimum informing people when pollution levels are so dangerous that you shouldn't go outside. The other thing they could do is set up a low emission zone. This is totally within the city's jurisdiction. Hundreds of other cities have done it, notably other major capitals like Paris and London, where you just say, look, even if you're complying with federal and provincial standards, you can't drive in our city or in our downtown unless you meet the following standards. In Canada, it's easy because truck emission standards from 2007 and onwards are much better. Those trucks are much more protective. And the older trucks could be retrofitted or they could just be moved. So, there's a working group. It's been talked about. We're calling for action quickly.
So where would the trucks? So I love this idea. I didn't know. I was just actually in Paris, so I didn't know anything about this.
Okay.
But let me ask you this: when you think about those two options, that the older trucks get retrofitted and the other ones, when you say move, where would you suggest they move?
I mean, that's a complicated question, and I would defer to the city on optimal alternative routes. But, our clients really do not want this pollution simply moved to another neighborhood. The point of a low emission zone is that, yes, it protects a high-density neighborhood and one that, as you so correctly say, has like the urban canyon effect. It's kind of the worst place in the city where you could put this. But the point of a low emission zone is that it rewards the companies that are running clean trucks and it incentivizes the other companies to retrofit.
Interesting.
Similarly, air quality monitoring would just inform people, all levels of government, because the funny thing is, I did a lot of research on this, as you can imagine, to prepare our open letter, and there was no media coverage of the health effects of truck-related air pollution associated with this corridor. So, we need to have awareness so that we can make informed choices going forward.
I dare think about the, close to a month that trucks occupied downtown Ottawa and what the health ramifications of that time was for residents, and quite honestly, the protesters themselves. I mean,
absolutely, and their children.
And their children, 112 children, I think, that were there.
Yeah.
It cannot have been pleasant for anybody. The whole thing. We could get into hours of discussion about that, but just from that perspective, I think it did bring the attention of this to others that may not have experienced it ever before.
Yes, exactly right. So we had experts going out and taking air quality measurements during the protests, and they found that Ottawa's air at that time was as dirty as the dirtiest cities in the world. And certainly many residents experienced, as you say, nausea, headaches, respiratory problems. But if there was a silver lining to that, it's that it really showed us how truck emissions can affect our health. And what we need to do is keep remembering that, not let the problem go invisible again, because we know for sure that it's affecting people's health in this neighborhood, especially the health of vulnerable people, children, elders, people with respiratory conditions. So it's no longer going to be acceptable to just have working groups and discussions and policy papers and feasibility studies. We need to start seeing some real concrete action within the next few months.
And aside from, the health, and really, really important, don't misunderstand me, but because of my experience at the Mission, I literally, my heart was in my throat every single day because those doors were so close to that road. Aside from trucks, any kind of traffic, there's, the sidewalk is very, very thin there. And I just thought, every single day I thought, is today the day where someone's going to lose their life just walking in that area?
There's a huge risk for pedestrian accidents as well. Yeah, it's an excellent point.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Learned a lot today from Linda Collins, University of Ottawa professor, Centre for Environmental Law and Global Sustainability. When we come back, we're going to talk about that carbon tax here in Ontario. We're also going to get caught up with David Phillips, senior climatologist with Environment Canada. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Behold Emily Carr, painter, about to encounter the force that will consume her life.
How tightly they sealed their secrets from me, humble and pleading before the great trees, awaiting the invitation from the Spirit to come meet me halfway. Nothing is still now, everything is alive. At last, I knew I must see through the eye of the totem itself, the mythic eye of the forest.
Seldom able to live by her brush, before she died in 1945, Emily Carr was in the first rank of Canadian painters.
This is my country. What I want to express is here, and I love it. Amen.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
And be helped.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You want to stay with us. David Phillips is coming up to talk about that storm coming our way. I know there's some snow down now, but what the next 24 hours, 36 hours looks like, David Phillips will be able to tell us what that is going to be for the capital and for the valley. We wanted to get caught up first with Lana Goldberg, Ontario Climate Program Manager with Environmental Defence. Hello, Lana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. Ontario carbon tax. Give us a little history here, Lana.
Sure. So for a long time, big industrial polluters were paying the federal government the carbon price. But last year, Ontario's own program kicked in, and the carbon price is now being collected and eventually spent by the provincial government. And although the program has been in place now for a year, we haven't seen a plan for how these funds are going to be spent. And I guess one more thing I would say is that unfortunately the province is charging less than the federal government was, and we're going to see about $1 billion less in proceeds over the course of 2023 to 2030 as a result of this change.
So I'm no mathematician, Lana, but I understand that we have received or will receive over about $2 billion. So are they charging, just to kind of make it simple math, 66% of what the federal government was charging?
Yeah, essentially that would be the end result. The federal government would have collected about $3.4 billion under the federal program, and the province in current terms, or well, essentially $2.2 billion is what they would be collecting over this period of time.
And if you were in Premier Ford's ear and giving him advice on where we should spend this money, where would you suggest?
I think the best use of the funds would be to invest in renewable energy projects like wind and solar to ensure that Ontario is replacing the many polluting gas plants currently being used to generate electricity in the province, rather than building new gas plants, which is currently the plan.
Does wind power really work? We've heard lots of different debate about that. Is that something that is actually an important step for Ontario?
Yeah, it definitely is, and there are so many opportunities. There are about 60 plus locations where we could put up wind, including offshore. There are studies that show that it can replace a lot of the energy being produced by the gas plants. And now we have all of these storage technologies that allow wind and solar as well to be stored for times that they are needed. So it's not that we can only use them when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining. No, we can now store that electricity and use it during high demand periods.
Aside from, of course, the opposition parties, who's holding the Ford government to account on this carbon tax?
Well, it appears that industry groups have been lobbying the government to be able to spend the funds on their own upgrades and so forth. I think one thing we need to be mindful of is that we can't be giving the money back to fossil fuel companies who are just continuing to use oil and gas in their operations. So, we don't want to be subsidizing fossil fuel companies to continue burning oil and gas. But there is space to support other industries like, steel, cement, to improve their operations and ensure that they're moving towards zero emissions.
Mm-hmm. Is this something, do you think, that Ontarians really know about? Is this been widely shared, Lana?
Probably not so much. It is quite technical who's paying the carbon price to whom. One thing to clarify for people is we're talking about the carbon price on big industrial polluters, whereas the price we pay on gas for our transportation, that's something separate. So. Mm-hmm. I think,
excellent.
There is a lot of information, so it is hard to follow all the developments.
For sure. And I think because, carbon tax has been so political too, sometimes it's hard to keep track of that as well. Len, I really appreciate your time today.
Great, thanks for having me.
Lana Goldberg, Ontario Climate Program Manager with Environmental Defence, talking about that Ontario carbon tax, which is going to bring over $2.2 billion to this province. Speaking about the climate and what's happening out there, we wanted to get connected again with David Phillips, Senior Climatologist with Environment Canada. The snow's coming down, David, so what do? We call you.
But you never call me, Sam. You always promise to call me when there's a blue sky with white puffy clouds.
It's true. What can we expect in the next 36 hours here in the capital and in the valley?
Well, it's already started snowing. I think about 11 o'clock last night we started to see periods of snow, and it's picked up. I see the visibility, often an indication of how strong the snow is. I mean, it had been about 16 kilometers up to about, I think about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock this morning, and then it began to fall, and we've seen visibility about maybe 4 kilometers. So it's not snowing heavily, but hey, we know it's upon us, and it's likely to be, more than 20 24 hours before that word snow ends. We will see periods of snow continuing. We see in total, storm total, we're talking anywhere from 20 to 30 centimeters of snow, and that's certainly not, that may be the third worst of the winter so far. You had a couple of big dumps of snow in December, one that was 37 centimeters, another that was 26 centimeters, there was another about 17. So, hey, you've already are veterans of these snow wars that we're seeing upon us. And there is a slight chance of freezing drizzle, freezing rain over, say, in the evening tonight, and then pretty well that freezing rain threat would end by maybe about 10 o'clock tonight or 9 o'clock. And then we just see periods of or snow heavy at times, and that's when most of the snow will fall, will be in the dark hours tonight, and the winds pick up too. I always think that you always have to look at those winds. Usually the last thing to leave on a system like this are the winds, and we see them 20 gusting to 40, and then tomorrow morning, about this time tomorrow morning, maybe 30 gusting to 50. So that snow that fell overnight will be redistributed, so you might be shoveling, plowing, and pushing. But because the temperatures are very close to the freezing mark, it'll be kind of a wet snow, heavy snow. It might be like plowing and pushing. It might be like shoveling concrete. I mean,
Right.
it can be very, very heavy. But you know, it's well announced. It's one of these Colorado lows that pick up a lot of moisture from tropical areas. But this one's a little different in a way, I think, Sam, because it's kind of been fueled and pushed along by these atmospheric rivers, these Pacific storms that have come through and causing problems in the West Coast. And it just gives it a little more oomph as it reaches the Great Lakes area and reaches into Quebec. We're already seeing, or Ontario and Quebec, we're already seeing in Ontario, we see some areas with rain, like Toronto and St. Catharines and Peterborough and Kitchener, and we see some snow obviously falling in some areas, but it will, as the cold air comes down, as this system will draw in the cold air, then it will clearly be a snow event for a good chunk of the province.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. And you know, I'm all for snow. It's the mixed stuff that makes me a little bit nervous.
It truly is. How do you deal with that? And and the thing is, you know, Sam, it could be different in one part of the city versus the other. When you're dealing with a temperature difference of 1 degree and that profile above, it's where what the air is like above that cold ground. That's always the issue and it's messy. You treat it differently. It causes power outages. Hey, we're used to snow. We're the second snowiest or the snowiest country in the world, so we can deal with that. But you're so right. It's when it gets near that freezing mark and you get a surprise, or you get 2 hours of this and 2 hours of that and can't make up its mind what it's going to do. It creates hardship for people.
Well, I'm also petrified that someone's going to get me on video walking like a penguin into this radio station. So that's the truth right there, David. That's what I'm nervous about.
You're so honest. That's so true.
I appreciate your time always.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Bye-bye.
David Phillips, Senior Climatologist with Environment Canada. I was shuffling in here when we had that recent freezing rain, and I was looking up into the windows of the radio station, so hoping that nobody was looking and watching me get into this station. I appreciate David's time today. When we come back, Dr. Nili Kaplan-Murth is going to join us. She's an Ottawa Carleton District School Board trustee, and she is receiving vile emails. We're going to talk to her about it. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
There we go. They're going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Thursday, 12th of January. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a winter storm advisory, it is -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -3. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa and the region is gearing up for another snowstorm. This one expected to dump up to 20 to 30 centimeters of snow in the capital. Environment Canada has issued a winter storm advisory for Ottawa, Smiths Falls, and much of eastern Ontario. City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi telling us the heaviest of the snowfall is expected tonight into the early hours of tomorrow before the snow tapers off in the later in the day tomorrow. Now, Smiths Falls might get some freezing rain turning into snow as the day progresses. Tomorrow, remember to give yourself extra travel time. It will be messy out there. And one Bancroft resident is facing multiple charges for slashing vehicle tires in downtown Bancroft. The Bancroft detachment of the OBPA responded to multiple calls of slashed tires on Wednesday, and their investigation led to the arrest of 54-year-old Edward Monroe. He is charged with 7 counts of mischief under $5,000 and failing to comply with an undertaking. And Edward is in police custody, and he is scheduled to appear in court later today. The annual World Report by Human Rights Watch says Canada is violating the rights of Indigenous peoples when it comes to things like climate change, immigration, and drinking water. The report also says Canada's border agency continues to operate without oversight, detaining some asylum seekers indefinitely. It also censures the government for its G20 leading public financing of fossil fuel projects and inadequate measures to support First Nations in adapting to the impact of climate change. City News time is 11:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, let's look at it this way. You work your whole life, you think, you know what, I'm going to go through to be a doctor. So you become a doctor, and then you decide through the pandemic that I'm going to serve my community in another way. I'm going to become a board trustee on a school board. And I'm a Jewish woman. Okay, think about those 3 things put together. Because that is Dr. Nili Kaplan-Mirth. That's the life that she is leading right now. And she joins me right now. Hi, doctor.
Hi, good morning.
So you've worked really hard to become a doctor. You worked incredibly hard during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Decided to become a trustee. And you are receiving, we've had you on before, talking about some of these absolute vile emails that you're receiving. I thought the last one that we talked about was bad.
Yeah.
This latest one, it is, I can't even read it on the air. I can't even read one word of it on the air.
Yeah.
So where's this coming from? Do you know?
No. So the thing is that the hate that is directed at me and also at one of my colleagues who's a physician in British Columbia, and she's a racialized woman physician who was also advocating for masks. And this kind of hate is unclear whether it's coming from within Canada or from outside of Canada. I do get still some pretty nasty emails that are definitely from within Canada related to masks and vaccines. But this latest spat really started in November after our mask mandate at the board, and it has not diminished. In fact, over Hanukkah, which was in December, I received like almost daily really horrible threatening things, and it continues, and it is sent to my personal email, and it's also sent to the email of me and the other trustees of the board. And the Ottawa Police Hate Unit is following up on the emails that we can trace. One of the factors that I think has also affected women journalists who've been attacked repeatedly, it's anti-Semitism, and it's also misogyny, and it's basically going after people who whether we're standing up for masks and vaccines, or whether we're just simply women who have stepped forward and had a voice publicly, we're attacked. And one of the challenges is that sometimes mail servers are used that hide the identity, that make it much more difficult to trace the IP address of the sender. And yesterday I reported 6 different email accounts to Proton, which is based in Switzerland. And Proton can shut down those accounts, but the way that it works is that, people can keep setting up new accounts, and we need the federal government to intervene to help to get an order from the Swiss court to say that they need to identify who this is, because it could very well be somebody 2 blocks away from my office. It's not necessarily anybody any further away than that, but you can hide your identity. And we saw very recently in Ottawa how quickly, when somebody was threatening Parliament on Twitter, boom, that 19-year-old was traced, arrested, charged. Like that'll happen very quickly. But that's a federal security matter, and this isn't RCMP or federal jurisdiction when it's an individual who's being attacked. The only thing is that this is happening across Canada, and it's happened repeatedly, and it's happened to Catherine McKenna, who was an MP in the Glebe, who basically stepped away from politics because she was faced with so much harassment, and it includes harassment of my family and threats to my family. Mm-hmm. And it is not a reason that I would ever stop working as a doctor or as a trustee, but it does give you pause and makes you wonder, like, what woman would ever dare to go into any kind of public role knowing that you're going to be attacked in all of these most horrible anti-Semitic, racist, sexist ways, and it. I've been sharing it publicly because I get that email. And why should I? And people are shocked by what I share because they're like, oh my God, I can't believe anybody would say anything like that. Well, like, I'm getting that. So it's, I think, important for people to understand that is what is happening.
Now, there's a lot that you've just said. I want to stop at a few points and really dive in a little bit here. And it's a point that you've made that I'm sorry that I didn't make at the beginning. They're vile, but they are threatening. Like, this is not, and they're using terms, and I'll say this, and I hope you understand why I'm saying this. I'm trying to share with the listener without sharing the email. They're sharing that they're suggesting gas chambers.
That's right.
And so, I mean,
these are deaths. These are threats. There, some of them say that my family should be burned alive. That I should have to watch people torturing my children, or like all of it is, it's made to try to rile me up and to upset me. And I'm just saying to the world, like, the thing is, this anti-Semitism, we are seeing, well, Ottawa has seen it in our school board with kids who've been anti-Semitic towards other children. This isn't just online trolls or, people like to say, well, it must just be some crazy person, but this isn't mental illness. And in defense of everybody who struggles with mental health, like, this has nothing to do with that. This is very much targeted hate, and it's organized. And yesterday there was a rally in Toronto, and one of the convoy people mentioned my name and was bragging about the fact that they really came to Ottawa and shut down our discussion about masks. And like, that is what all of this is. This isn't just some random person who is unwell somewhere writing yucky stuff. Like, this is so. When I say that I'm worried, like, for us as a society. My grandparents came to Canada after the Second World War. Their entire rest of their families did go to gas chambers. Their entire families were killed. And, I'm not supposed to be a generation that then has to face somebody threatening me in that way. And my children's generation, and, I have patients who are sending their kids off to kindergarten and are worried because, well, is their child going to experience anti-Semitism in school? So it's pervasive, and unfortunately, it's not. We don't have strong enough laws in Canada to deal with online hate and email. We should have a mechanism for immediately tracing these acts of hate, because it is a crime here. Mm-hmm. If it turns out that it's an American doing it, it's not actually a crime to express hate in the States, but it is here. So at the very least, we should be able to determine, is this somebody in Canada, and if so, they should be charged. Doctor, are you scared for your safety? So, yes, and I have been yelled at and harassed by local people. So I don't know that they're not the ones sending me this, right? So I'm like I said during Hanukkah that, traditionally you put a Hanukkah or a menorah, you light candles and you have it in the window, and it's supposed to signal that it's a Jewish home. And we had our blinds closed the entire time, because I can't have anybody know where I live or that it's a Jewish home because of what we're facing. So, that's not okay ever. This is 2022. This is 2022, and the sentence that you just said, it absolutely breaks my heart that you cannot live as a Jewish family during Hanukkah. Yeah. Well, there are people across Canada who responded to me and said, that, like, there are others who don't feel safe. There are others who do feel safe. Generally speaking, if you're in Montreal or in Toronto or some areas of Vancouver, there's a larger Jewish population, and I have never in my 48 years of life ever been called the K word until 2022, when it started happening on the regular, and the ways in which the threats are coming in, they leave you not knowing, because the police can't tell me, is this somebody in Ottawa? Is this somebody, because we had a death threat from somebody in Montreal, but that person was never charged, and we're still 14 months later trying to get like a restraining order against that person. There's a person who was charged with both harassing me and with hate in Windsor, and he still has not, there's a arrest warrant out, and they have not detained him. And so these are people who actually have criminal records and are actually considered to be potentially dangerous, and there's nothing that's actually done to protect me. So every time I speak with media, speaking with you or speaking with CBC or speaking by writing articles, I make myself more of a target again for hate. And My husband has said, Neely, you don't have to keep putting yourself out there. But the thing is, if we don't talk about it, it's still happening. So I want something to happen that is going to change this pattern. And I've written to the Minister of Health, Minister Duclos, who I spoke to before, about anti-Semitism. I've tried to reach out to my MPP and my MP. And I'm trying to get somebody to actually help us to change the way that this can happen, because it's not just physicians. Like I said, it's also women journalists, particularly Jewish or racialized women, and nobody in any field should be subject to this.
I'm so sorry you go through this, and by inviting you on here, by no means do I ever want to attract more hate your way. It's really an opportunity to try and spread your message. I'm hoping today that our listeners here at City News have got compassion, or they've learned something from you today, and I hope that we haven't sent anything else your way today.
Thank you.
Dr. Nili Kaplan-Mirth joining us today, obviously a physician in this community, but also a trustee with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Heartbreaking story. When we come back, we're going to talk a little music. I think we need that today with Eric Alper. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grine, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
unmistakable talent of Jeff Beck. We're mourning his loss today. We wanted to speak with Eric Alper, publicist and music and commentator at that Eric Alper on Twitter. Eric Alper, you listen to that tune and you think about the one and only Jeff Beck.
Yeah, it's so sad and such a shock considering that he was on the road with Johnny Depp promoting their latest album called 18. They just got off the road in November, and Jeff Beck has led a very quiet, personal, very private life away from the stage, and just the amount of shock and social media postings ranging from Rod Stewart to Mick Jagger to Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin to the Roots in the hip-hop world just shows you how astonishing his career was and just how influential he was, even for people who may not have a Jeff Beck album in their collection. He might have not been your favorite guitarist, but he was certainly your favorite guitarist.
Yeah, actually a really good way of saying that for sure. And I think he's just one of those people that you see him play and you think, well, I could play guitar. That looks easy, right? He just makes it look easy.
Yeah, yes, and that's the mark of somebody that's a genius, and somebody like me that's an idiot that actually would believe that too, and because he could really do it all. He can go from blues rock to jazz fusion to electronica. I mean, his biggest selling album was in blues rock, and then 3 albums later kind of, went off into instrumental and new age and opera, and his ability to never stay in one place for very long really showed his diverse talent, but that's the mark of a true genius, is to make it look really easy. But thanks to YouTube, you can slow down his videos and you try to play like him, and it's next to impossible. It's why he's always rated in the top 5 of the greatest guitarists of all time.
And it's so interesting because you and I have spoke over a number of years, Eric, and when we speak about the passing of these greats, it seems always unbelievable. I mean, it's almost like they're superhuman and they're never going to pass away or something. This one really hit hard, I think, because it was, from what I can understand, and maybe you know better, but it was really truly unexpected.
Yeah, and it's interesting that these artists get older, but you and I still manage to stay the same age throughout all of this. But yeah, and I think because he worked with so many different people, from Eric Clapton to India Arie to the Pretenders to Kelly Clarkson, Rod Stewart. He really was able to reach a large portion of the music audience. He wasn't like Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page, that they kind of tended to stick to blues or rock, and that was pretty much it. With Jeff Beck, you never quite knew who he was going to connect with. I'm sure his performance with Johnny Depp, especially after Johnny Depp, literally the day after that court case ended with Amber Heard, Johnny was out on the road with Jeff. And so it brought a worldwide spotlight to him that Jeff probably A, hated, and B, loved, because at least, he was getting some recognition for his guitar work again. But he shunned the spotlight on purpose. He never wanted to be a celebrity. He never wanted to be in the pop charts. He never wanted to, he didn't care. He just didn't care about gold albums, but he cared about playing his guitar and getting those sounds from his brain onto this like immobile instrument that he just made it sing. It was pretty remarkable.
It is remarkable. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about those people, those musicians that maybe have had a falling out. I've told you a million times, one of my favorite songs for the Bare Naked Ladies is the song Brian Wilson. Well, Brian Wilson hasn't had it easy. Eric, talk to us a little bit about Brian Wilson.
Yeah, when it comes to people like Brian Wilson and Jeff Beck, they're really only human, and because there's no guidebook to how to become a rock star, it's really tough. It's tough to be able to do the things that you and I take for granted, like walk down the street or have a meal. If you compound that with literally horrible childhoods, women don't even look at you twice unless you're on stage in your 20s. People ignored you. You probably have a horrible relationship with your parents. Most musicians are kind of really wonky when it comes to stability. So the ability that they have music as a technical skill and can kind of feed their calmness out of that playing is something that there's a line through all of the musical geniuses. They're always usually damaged and really tough to get along with.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. Who else kind of falls into that category, Eric?
I think, when you're talking about guitar players specifically or musicians, I mean, all you have to do is take a look at what's going on now with somebody perhaps like a Kanye West that is just surrounding himself with people that glorify and say yes to every whim and caters to everything that he does, and with really bad results. And that's usually what happens is that, these artists get so famous and so successful that the only things that you want to hear around you is, yes, we can do that, rather than, maybe we shouldn't, because if you say that, then you'll just be turfed out. Musicians aren't any different than politicians in some sort of way. But when you go through the history of celebrities, especially in the age of social media, where they're always on, they're never off, they are always in the spotlight, it's painful and brilliant at the same time that anybody can manage a semblance of life in this day and age, with everybody trying to bring you down and cancel culture and things coming back from your past to haunt you. It's just amazing that anybody wants to be famous in 2023.
Mm-hmm. We only have about a minute and a half left, but, we look at some of the people that have just literally been removed off of albums as well, right? They haven't gotten along with people and all of a sudden their names are disappearing.
Yeah, there's an interesting look about what happens when band members fall out with one another. You mentioned Brian Wilson, who, depending on what tour it is with the Beach Boys, you never know if Brian Wilson is going to be a part of it. Michael Anthony from Van Halen had such a big falling out with the Van Halen brothers that he is airbrushed out of photos that are found on the Van Halen website. And my favorite all-time band, Genesis, did that with this guy named Ray Wilson for their last album, completely denying them and denying him his place in history. The album didn't do so well, but any autobiography about the band just completely bypasses that year that he was with them after Phil Collins left.
It's so interesting. I mean, we obviously, we turn on the radio or we're playing a tune in our home and we just don't think about all of these sort of background conversations and relationships and you always do such a lovely job, Eric, of opening up our minds to what's behind the music. I think about
those things so you don't have to.
There you go. We rely on you, Eric Helfer, and we do every single Thursday. Thanks so much for remembering Jeff Beck today. And everything that he brought to the music world, and thinking about some of those people that had some fallings out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me,
Thank
Sam.
you so
I appreciate
much.
it.
Like, of course, the one and only Brian Wilson. My favorite song ever. Bare Naked Ladies. We're going out on City News. We're coming back for lunch, everybody. Stay with us.
I just can't stop. It's a matter of instinct, it's a matter of conditioning, a matter of fact. You can call me Pavlov's dog. Ring a bell and I'll salivate. How'd you like that? Dr. Landy, tell me you're not just a pedagogue. 'Cause right now I'm lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did. Well, I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Thursday, 12th of January. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a winter storm warning and light snow, it is -6. In Smiths Falls, it is -3. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The snow that began overnight will continue until late tomorrow afternoon. This extended snowfall is thanks to a pair of systems hitting eastern Ontario. City News weather specialist Denise Andreachi saying Ottawa gets snow, but it's a little different for Smiths Falls.
So we're keeping an eye on this because that mixing threat is there for Smiths Falls. It doesn't look like any sort of freezing precipitation at this point, just some mixing of rain and snow. That's why at the end of all of this, we'll probably see less accumulation in Smiths Falls than Ottawa.
And the light snow continues today with heavier snow this evening and the heaviest overnight before it changes to light snow through the day tomorrow. Now, due to expected weather conditions tomorrow, a daytime winter weather parking ban will be in effect between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. across the city. The hours might be extended if additional time is needed to complete winter road operations. Now, with the weather forecast for today for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andreachi.
Guaranteed high today, -1. Snow is heavy at times, up to 30 centimeters, but this is by late day Friday. So this is going to be a multi-day storm threat here across the region. Most of the province is blanketed in some sort of warning or advisory, and it's winter storm warnings for Ottawa and Smiths Falls. The guaranteed high for today, -1.
City News time is 12:01. The Ottawa police is reporting a jump in the number of hate crimes in this city. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details.
The Ottawa Police released their stats for last year, and they've seen a rise in hate crime reporting by 13%. Numbers also going up for 3 straight years. In 2019, there were 119 incidents. In 2020, up to 181. In 2021, there were 340, and last year, 377. Of those, 51 people were charged with 174 total counts, 8 warnings, and 7 Youth Criminal Justice Act warnings were issued. Police said the most victimized groups in the city included Jewish, Black, LGBTQ+, Arab, Muslim, and East and South Asian people, and the most serious violations were mischief to property, threats, assault, and assault with a weapon. Chris Curry's City News.
City News time 12:02. The Queensway Cotton Hospital is reporting higher than normal visits to the ER, leading to overcapacity of patients needing care. Leanne Leemonth, the director of medicine at the hospital, talks to the Sam Laprade Show.
We're at 105% occupied today. We have several patients waiting in the emergency department, 20 in total. What our biggest pressure seems to be our mental health population right now. and we're seeing some really sick, complex patients. January tends to be a very tough month anyway for most of us, and we're definitely seeing that in our mental health population.
And she says they are seeing some very sick patients experiencing complex illnesses, especially in the mental health population. Now, if for any reason you have to visit the ER at the QCH, she says to pack your patience and be prepared for a longer than normal wait time. Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabra is set to testify before a House of Commons committee looking into mass travel disruptions during bad weather in the recent holiday season. A panel of representatives from Air Canada, WestJet and Sunwing Airlines will get things underway. While bad weather is being blamed for triggering the chaos, many MPs are taking issue with the lack of communication companies had with passengers whose plans were upended. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says Canadian travellers who were mistreated by airlines deserve an explanation. I am Damilola Unime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, what's on the menu today? We're going to talk a little LRT. We're going to talk a little bit about Mayor Mark Sutcliffe and that tax promise that he's made us. We're also going to head to British Columbia and speak about a British Columbian RCMP officer and the anti-Trudeau satirical website that he developed. We invited to the table today Justin Ling, freelance journalist. Hello, Justin.
Hey, good afternoon.
And Christina Spencer joins us as well, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen. Hello, Christina.
Hello to both of you.
Thank you so much for being here. The first hiccup happened, Christina. How did the new council handle the LRT challenges?
Well, I'd say the new council itself has been not exactly low-key, but cautious about this. We've seen councillors saying, "Oh yeah, this is something that needs to get fixed," which we heard from the last council, and then we've seen a bunch of them immediately go out and try and use public transit, right, to see how long it took them to get downtown from the East End via the R1 bus service, or making a point there, obviously, that they are engaged and looking at this. They're a new council, so I don't think we can expect a whole lot from them. At this point, we do have something slightly different with this council, which is an LRT subcommittee, right, that has been set up. Steve DeRoche will be running that, and he's a new/returning councillor, if we can call him that, and they will be focused, directly and presumably more in depth on LRT going forward. But it's hard to sort of say that the council handled it or didn't handle it one way or another this time out. It was mostly up to staff, and given the disaster, I would say the staff handled it reasonably well.
And we saw those travel challenges with airplanes and via rail as well. Justin, it's really about the communication when something goes wrong. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. City councilors, city staff, the mayor, they don't decide when the LRT goes down. They don't decide when a bus goes off the road. The prime minister or the industry minister doesn't decide when a branch falls down and hits a via rail car. Right. All you can really do in that situation is try and communicate as effectively as possible and try and make sure that there's actual decision making happening. Right. Like one of the worst problems about what happened with via rail over the holidays is that it seemed like nobody was in charge, right? You had the industry minister kind of coming out to the media, I think through Twitter, and then much later kind of in a statement saying, "Oh, we're looking into it. We're trying to figure out what's happening. We're doing our best." Meanwhile, the poor staff aboard the Via Rail car are trying to figure out whether or not they should be, letting people off in the middle of nowhere, whether or not they should be letting paramedics on board. It was complete chaos. This is what happens when you have no leadership, nobody taking charge, nobody communicating, nobody knew what was happening. People were still getting on board Via Rail cars thinking they were going to get to their destination, right? And of course they weren't. So all you can really, I think, expect in this scenario is an adult who steps up and says, "I'm responsible, I'm taking charge, here's what's happening, and here's what I expect from the people who report to me." Mm-hmm. And I think that is the sign of good leadership. Have you seen that in Ottawa yet? I don't think so, but they're still getting started.
I'll disagree with you slightly on that. What we did see in this particular 6-day shutdown, which we hadn't seen as much of before, was communication. You know, the media were kept quite well informed of what was going on. Doesn't mean anything was proceeding any more quickly, but they were kept informed of it. Press conferences were held to take questions. But even the memos from the city were clear. You know, they did tell us what was happening, what the problem was. Hey, we sent in another train. Oops, that didn't work. You know, they weren't. One did not get the impression, at least from a media point of view, that they were holding back information, that we needed to be suspicious about it. We were all very dismayed. But at least we knew, and that does contrast to what was happening with VIA and with some of the airlines, I think.
Mm-hmm. Christina, I've thought a lot about the people that were on that train, upwards of 20 hours. I can't imagine what that was like. Have you ever been stuck for that amount of time in a transit situation, Christina?
I've been stuck, but not for that amount of time, no. Mm-hmm. Like, we're talking, you know, maybe 2 or 3 hours stuck on a train or something like that. And, you know, VIA's always been like this, to Justin's point. You get stuck on the train for some reason. You have no idea what's going on. The staff on the train are doing their best. They can't tell you. But no, I've never been under those conditions. Have you?
Yes. Well, so in Europe, we got stuck a little bit, and I was getting a little bit antsy because normally, you know, as a mom, I'm packing all sorts of snacks. We had no food with us. And so we quickly, as we realized that there was going to be a bit of a delay, we went and grabbed, I think, the last 2 bags of tiny little bags of chips to have something to eat. But Justin, have you ever experienced anything like that?
Nothing that bad. I mean, I've been stranded in Germany for a few days before, thanks to some kind of chaotic travel schedules. You know, I'll tell you what. You know, the one thing that Europe, at the very least, to some degree, the U.S. gets very right about a lot of these issues is that there's always kind of liability attached, or at the very least, some level of kind of financial responsibility that the carrier kind of is obligated to adhere to for their passengers. It does create a level of consequence, right? And there's often no consequences in this country. I'm not saying that every passenger should be able to sue OC Transpo every time their LRT is late, but there is something to be said in this country, whether it's air travel, whether it's passenger rail, whether it's public transit, there is often sort of no consequence for bad performance. There's often, at the very least, very, very low financial kind of culpability if you start canceling flights, if you start stranding passengers, as we saw recently with Sunwing. Some new regulations have sort of upped the consequence a little bit, but based on what I'm hearing, it's, a lot of air carriers, at the very least, are kind of loath to actually pay passengers what they're owed if they strand them or delay them for a day or two. And I think, maybe a conversation in that direction could be really fruitful. I mean, if Via Rail suddenly started facing, financial consequences when people get stuck for 12 hours on their train, maybe there will actually be better service in this country.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting point for sure. Let's shift gears a little bit, Christina. We know that throughout the mayoral campaign, Mark Sutcliffe indicated that he was going to hold the line at a 2.5% tax increase. We know that Mayor John Tory is proposing a 5.5% tax increase. We understand during his mayoral campaign, he said he would keep it under the rate of inflation. Do you think the mayor here in Ottawa can hold the line at 2.5% with all the pressures that this city is facing?
Well, he can. The issue is just should he? I think. I mean, he could set the tax rate, and council could set the tax rate hike wherever it wants to. It's just a question of what we're giving up for that, right? What infrastructure are you not going to go ahead with? What enhanced recreation programs that you've promised as well are not going to happen? Those kinds of things. We have inflation still very high, and this is effectively a cut, right? When you look at something like a 2.5% increase. So everyone in Ottawa loves that. We're used to that. Mayor Watson gave us 3% or 2.5%, depending on the year and depending on the term. At some point, yes, these chickens come home to roost, and you're looking at services that aren't very good, crumbling roads, transit. So it is really a question of what he will think the trade-offs are and what his council will think the trade-offs are. I mean, he had 16 votes saying, yeah, this is a good idea. as a council direction. So it would seem like most of the councillors are on board to try and make the sacrifices that this leads to. I mean, Mayor Sutcliffe has said, and he said during the campaign, well, I'm going to find efficiencies, and tell me what politician has not said that to you while running for office, right? I'm sure there are efficiencies to be found. Are there enough to make this a good trade-off? I'm skeptical of that.
And I think, Justin, if there's one thing that people remember from a campaign, they'll probably forget 98% of what candidates say, but they always remember the tax piece. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, of course, and the part of the problem in this country is that we've become addicted to low property taxes, and who can blame us, right? Nobody wants to pay more in taxes, but we've developed this expectation that, well, mostly that property taxes have to be kind of the main way in which cities fund themselves, and B, that they should remain as low as humanly possible at all times, which is really unfair to cities, which are systemically underfunded, as Christina kind of rightly points out. So, I mean, I think we either have to have a real conversation about how we fund cities in this country. We have to accept that property taxes are going up, or, and I think this is the sweet spot that frankly we don't talk about enough. We need to talk about bringing more people into our cities, right? One of Toronto's biggest problems is that it's not building enough housing, right? It is forcing existing residents to pay more because they frankly don't want to see a big building go up next door. They don't want to see their single family neighborhood turn into medium density, right? They're paying more because the city can't add in new taxpayers into their tax base. And that's going to be a problem going forward. Increasingly, as the city is facing a massive police budget, massive cost overruns on public transit, massive infrastructure deficits, you're going to be asking the existing residents to pay more and more and more. And as John Tory is increasingly saying, we don't want new people moving into these neighborhoods. And it's a real problem. And it's frankly going to need somebody to stand up and say, this isn't going to work into the long term. And I think Ottawa is facing a really similar problem.
It's going to be really interesting to watch for sure. And I know Justin Lang, freelance journalist, and Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen, will be watching closely. When we come back after this break, we're going to talk about the visit of President Joe Biden. He's coming to the Capitol in March. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
You know the story. When the RCAF said Mach 2 fighter, 2-place 1,000-mile range, the British said it was impossible. The Yanks tried twice and failed. They said, you're dreaming. We said, fine, we'll build it right here in Toronto. And now you guys, my guys, are saying that it can't be done, that they were right?
Now that's the rocket that we used to get the model up to speed, and then the onboard sensors tell us that...
Come on, baby.
Damn it! But we did it according to your specs. The specs have changed. We did it. Arrow 201. You're cleared for takeoff.
We did it!
Although the government cancelled the project and destroyed the prototypes, the Avro Arrow remains for Canada a world benchmark in aerospace achievement.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back. We're feasting on those top news stories of the day with Justin Ling, freelance journalist, and Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen. Justin Ling, I was on social media last night, as I often am, and I saw a story regarding an RCMP officer in British Columbia that he had created a website, an anti-Trudeau satirical website. Have you seen this story, Justin?
Yeah, I just saw this headline, and frankly, I'm not surprised. I mean, it feels like we have another one of these stories every couple of months, if not weeks at this point, whether it's a Canadian Armed Forces officer who is posting videos to TikTok saying, don't get vaccinated, or it's a city police officer uploading a video saying the World Economic Forum secretly runs the country, or it's an RCMP officer saying the Prime Minister is evil and bad and terrible. It seems like this is kind of a running problem. And frankly, we haven't really figured out a good answer for this, right? Members of the RCMP, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, civil servants, they still have freedom of speech. They're allowed to voice political opinions. Where it crosses over is if they're doing it in uniform, if they're using their official capacity to advertise or to promote or to underscore their political point, or if they're doing it on the job. I mean, all those things can lead to sort of consequences. But frankly, I think we just have to get over this to some degree, right? People who work for the federal government, people who work for our national police force or our military might have opinions we don't like, and that could go a bunch of different directions. And at a certain point, we have to stop sort of obsessing over it and just sort of say, as long as they're not using the authority of the state to do so, who cares?
And Christina, he doesn't mention in the website that he is an RCMP officer. He dresses up in well, to be honest, a little bit of strange costumes and sort of does his thing, to be honest with you. But he doesn't talk about the fact he is in, he's serving through the RCMP. So should this impact his job, Christina?
I think there should be an impact, whether it's loss of job. I wouldn't go that far on this kind of thing, but I'm not laissez-faire about free speech for people who carry guns legally in our society in order to protect us. It is my own view that cops should not have public opinions on things, nor should the Canadian Armed Forces. This really, really undermines the credibility of those bodies, and we've seen it happen, and this kind of thing makes it happen. If you think about the trucker convoy situation in Ottawa, this whole issue of how cops individually might have felt, it should be irrelevant, and it wasn't. And I think that makes everyone very, very uneasy. You could extend the discussion to, well, how would you feel if your doctor was telling you all about his political views while you're, I would just rather not know those things. I don't want to know those things. I want these people to have their professional mindset on as professionals. There are lots and lots of jobs where you cannot just go and blurt out whatever you think about politics of the day, and these are among them. And because these are, I would argue, just about the most important jobs in a free democracy, there do have to be limits, and yes, there have to be consequences if you go past those limits. I think that someone blurping out of turn is a warning kind of offense. Someone setting up an elaborate website, an elaborate video script with costumes and everything else, who knows, and is planning very well what he's doing, probably should be facing some somewhat severe consequences for it, yes.
Well, at the same time, to some degree, the sort of technology has changed more than the individual people here, right? I mean, back in the day, you go to as many protests as you like, write as many letters as you like, put up as many posters as you like, and frankly, most of the world wouldn't know, right? Your boss at the RCMP probably wouldn't notice. The people you're serving on the street probably wouldn't be any more the wiser. The reality is the internet, the ability for us to tie a lot of those political actions to their professional role is what's changed here. And I think to some degree we're going to have to just kind of get over this culture shift, right? I mean, I don't think we can expect that every single person who works for the RCMP or the Canadian Armed Forces just cannot have any public-facing opinions, at least any public-facing opinions that may be kind of uncouth or unpleasant or stupid or wrong or conspiratorial. I think it will ultimately hurt our ability to recruit smart, engaged, interesting people into those roles.
I think the irony for me in terms of this story is that, RCMP colleagues of this particular member are protecting the Prime Minister of this country. So that's where I do find that, it's a bit off-putting to find somebody doing this when, a colleague that he maybe even went to police school with is now the person protecting the Prime Minister. Justin, what do you think about that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can dislike somebody and still protect them. I think you can dislike someone's political opinions and still do your job. Again, I think at any given day, there's going to be a prime minister or minister or world leader or whoever that the RCMP really, really dislike and distrust and can still, stand next to and protect and look out for. And if it's judges they can't, that's a much different conversation. But I think just disagreeing with somebody politically doesn't necessarily impede your ability to do your job.
Christina, last word to you on this topic.
I'm so old-fashioned, Justin, that I actually believe journalists who are not opinion writers should also keep their opinions to themselves. And it dismays me to see on Twitter the kinds of back and forth I often see within my own profession, because I think it undermines us in the public. So you're quite right that, of course, you can protect and be a very, very good advocate on behalf of someone and have opinions about them that are quite different. Yes, of course you can. The issue is if you're venting them all in public, you are undercutting the reputation of your service, your force, probably your own. And I don't think that is good overall for democracy or for the reputation of these places. It's a difficult question, I admit. But in this one, we don't see eye to eye too well.
And that's okay. And that's what this lunch is all about. And this is exactly the kind of debate that I was hoping for when we brought people together from the community. Let's talk a little bit about the 3 Amigos Summit is going on right now. We know the leaders of Canada, the U.S., and Mexico are meeting, walking through a lot of different topics. We know that one of the things that came out of that, Justin, was the fact that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is going to be hosting President Joe Biden. What do you hope they speak about?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things facing them right now is figuring out this headache of a nexus problem. All sorts of kind of weird bureaucratic stuff happening. Canada not keen on the idea of these nexus officers carrying guns, a bunch of logistical stuff. They've come to kind of a temporary agreement in Mexico City, but it is really just temporary. The backlogs are nuts. It's causing delays at the border. They need to get together and hammer out an actual solution here. I can imagine that will probably be pretty much top of the agenda, as well as kind of finally putting to rest some of the outstanding trade disputes that have kind of been percolating for years, that got worse under the Trump administration, that have gotten a bit better, but are still sort of bubbling below the surface. There's actually a lot of work to do, and frankly, over a couple of days of their meeting in Mexico City, there hasn't been a lot of progress. So I think that one-on-one meeting is designed to finally make some headway at a few of those tricky files.
And Christina, just quickly, what are you hoping that they speak about?
All of those things. Justin's absolutely right. The border is always an issue and one that needs to be fixed. Trade, we make little steps forward and then there are steps back, and Congress is a little bit unpredictable. So we will see basically what happens there. But that is the number one thing. But the other thing, of course, internationally, Ukraine, a big one, and China, and sort of the Western alliance.
80
right now for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking sort of about the Western Alliance and whether it will hold through another year in dealing with the situation in Ukraine. Biden has been at the forefront of that and fairly effective, and effective enough to make Canada step up in ways that we probably didn't imagine we were going to, which is, I think, probably a good thing. But yes, in our own hemisphere, we do have a few problems. Yes.
I want to get our fun question in today. So just really, really quickly, Justin Ling, where should Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bring President Joe Biden for dinner here in the capital?
That's a good question. El Camino, just go for tacos.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Christina, where would you suggest?
I would suggest they not go for a $20,000 atelier dinner.
Yes, good point.
Maybe Louis Boo on the way up to a nice chat at Harrington Lake or something.
There you go, for sure. And my suggestion, the Golden Palace on Carling Avenue. So there you go. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate your time today. Justin Ling, Christina Spencer, joining us for lunch. A great discussion today. Thank you. Cheers. Stay with us for the Business Lunch on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Thursday, the 12th of January. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a winter storm warning and light snow, -5, in Smiths Falls, -3. And here's what's making news this hour. Now, due to the weather conditions expected tomorrow, the city has put a parking ban in effect between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. During winter weather parking bans, residents will have access to some city parking garages. Just take note of what time you need to remove your vehicle. Residents will also have access to select OC Transport parks and rides, as well as recreation centers. Now, the hours might be extended if additional time is needed to complete winter road operations. And the leaders of Ontario's opposition parties have asked the Auditor General to probe the province's move to open up part of the Greenbelt to developers. Incoming NDP leader Marit Stiles, Liberal leader John Fraser, and Green Party leader Mike Schreiner say they want Bonnie Lisik to conduct a value for money assessment of the government's decision to remove 7,400 acres from the protected Greenbelt while adding land elsewhere. They also would like the Auditor General to assess the financial and environmental impact of the Moose. And there's only about a week left to purchase a ticket for the Snowsuit Fun 50/50. The lucky winner of the 50/50 draw come January 20 could go home with more than $270,000. The other half of the funds will be used to purchase snowsuits for kids in the city who are in need of one this winter. Tickets are available for between $10 to $100 at snowsuitfund5050.com. You can also send the word money to 55555 to have a donation link sent directly to your mobile phone. Again, the draw is on January 20 at 8:30 a.m. City News Time, 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it is the business lunch. We dedicate this half hour to businesses in our community, business stories. We talk to business owners. We talk to CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations. We talk all things business. And we know, although Winterlude is a lot of fun, it means a lot of business for the capital region. We wanted to get connected today with Steve Ball, president of the Ottawa Gatineau Hotel Association. Hello, Steve.
Good afternoon, Sam. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Isn't it fun to be talking about a normal, quote, normal Winterlude coming up?
Kind of nice this morning to look out the window and see the snow.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is something we've been looking forward to for a number of years.
So one of the metrics that we use in terms of big festivals and things like Winterlude is how many hotel rooms are booked in this region. Is it looking bright?
It's funny, when you asked this morning about that, and I did a little call around and outreach, it's a funny market in that because it's what we call leisure travel, that has become very short-term booking. So the pickup so far has been nothing significant, but that doesn't matter because as we get closer to the dates and depending on the weather and the canal being open, and if in our feeder market someone's not doing laundry or their hair that weekend, boom, they come. And it just comes at us fast in a matter of two or 3 days.
And it's so interesting because, of course, we know that Winterlude, really didn't happen like Winterlude does in 2022. We know 2021 was obviously affected. COVID was just starting to sneak our way at the end of Winterlude of 2020. So we haven't seen a sort of a regular Winterlude in a long time, Steve. The city's ready, though, isn't it?
Well, last year the convoy just crushed us. Even those that were planning to come and skate on the canal, as you said, there wasn't an active Winterlude per se. Couldn't even get to their downtown hotels, so it just crushed us. And we're optimistic that the reputational damage from that is forgotten and that people will come and take advantage of all of the activities this year. And there's a lot of them. I looked at the Heritage Canada website this morning, and they're promoting 386 different activities taking place over the 3-week period. That's pretty exciting. There's lots to do.
That's very exciting for sure. And when I think about hotels in this area, we know a lot of people will pay a bit of a more premium dollar to stay downtown at one of those places where they could basically walk to the canal. How far out do you think that people end up staying if they're coming for Winterlude activities? Do we find people coming for Winterlude using our public transportation system that are maybe staying in communities like Bell's Corners and Orleans, or are they mostly in that downtown core?
No, I think in our industry, what we experience is something called compression. So as the downtown fills, it pushes out to the outer area of Ottawa more accommodation requests. So absolutely, people come from all over the community downtown for this. Downtown could be desirable. The price difference, you'd be surprised, is not that much more in most cases. And yes, we see people coming from all parts of the community to take advantage of things that are taking place in the core. There are also some activities that are not taking place in the core. So, it is. We try to spread it out as much as possible, or Heritage Canada does.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about, skipping ahead to events like the Tulip Festival and Blues Fest, or have you already got your sights sort of set watching what's going to happen in those time frames as well?
Yeah, so something like Blues Fest is interesting in that as soon as the lineup is announced, because it's tied to a date, we often see bookings. That's a little bit different than something more generic like a Winterlude or a Tulip Festival. Canada Day, same thing. Targeted to a date, you get bookings, you get committed demand much farther out than you do for something like the Winterlude. Winterlude, very dependent on the weather that particular weekend, sometimes tied to an activity, and God bless Heritage Canada for establishing their events early and promoting them earlier. That does help people plan. But again, leisure-related travel is often short-term, and the pandemic has only made it more short-term in terms of how people think about what do you want to do this weekend, right?
And Steve, we got a little nice boost from CNN calling on people from the U.S. and the world to come and visit Ottawa, which was a nice surprise when I saw that CNN was talking about Ottawa. I'll be honest with you, I held my breath for a second because sometimes it hasn't been favorable. We've had some tragedy here, of course, but also challenging times with the so-called Freedom Convoy. Was that a boost that you think will actually pay off in terms of hotel rooms?
Yeah, absolutely. Any third party endorsement is a good thing, and in spite of CNN being CNN, it's news that's well represented across a large area. So yeah, of course, being mentioned is great. I think Ottawa, been here my whole life, is a bit of a best kept secret. And when you read the TripAdvisor comments for those that have visited Ottawa and experienced everything we have to offer, they're really positive. I mean, it's almost with surprise that they were exposed to so much in our outdoor product and just what we have to offer. So some of our best promotion are those that have been here and experienced it.
Mm-hmm. How important is that U.S. dollar as well? We're speaking with Steve Ball, president of the Ottawa Gatineau Hotel Association. The currency rate, and do you find that we see a bump in tourism from our American neighbors when we're seeing rates like we are now at for the American dollar?
Canada's on sale, and so is Ottawa. It absolutely is a selling factor in that their dollar is so strong against ours. Absolutely. The border's been shut down for so long that to reestablish and rebuild that U.S. visitation is going to take some time, and it's important that Ottawa tourism, and they recognize what feeder markets and important markets we need to be in. They're active right now rebuilding that. But recovery is going to take a while, and in Ottawa, we're actually recovering a little bit slower than some of the other markets because a big part of what we depend on is corporate travel. And with the federal government not having been at work for such a long period of time, a lot of that meetings and convention and corporate travel business has dried up. So rebuilding that is very important for us in Ottawa as well, and that'll impact the U.S. market as well.
What keeps you up at night, Steve?
How long do we have?
5 minutes. Yeah.
So what really is the challenge for us right now is the labor market. We have labor shortages. We don't know where they're going to feed from. Canada, it's not just Ottawa, Canada as a whole in the tourism market is short hundreds of thousands of workers. And where are we going to draw these people from? So that to me is the biggest long-term play. And as we rebuild, and we have been rebuilding the tourism market in Canada, we need the people in place to be able to properly serve the public and make sure they get the experience that they're expecting when they do visit us. So labor is the big one.
And I would love to ask you as well, my daughter and I spent a night, we did a little staycation. We stayed at a downtown hotel and we went and saw the Bare Naked Ladies at the NAC. It was a lovely time. But one thing I did notice, and I worked at the Mission for 10 years, so make no mistake about it, my compassion is there for people on the streets, people that find themselves homeless. It's, just a page of their book. It's not their whole book, but we know that it's challenging for people with addiction issues and of course with mental health issues. Do you hear from your members that this is a challenge for them on an ongoing basis, attracting people to their hotels?
All the time. And I've been on the board of Shepherds of Good Hope now for 5 years to try to learn as much as I possibly can about social agencies and what's going on in our community and where we can help the most. And the members of the Ottawa Gatineau Hotel Association are very, very receptive to being involved in solutions. It's not an easy solution. It's going to require an all-of-community effort to try to deal with where the unhoused file has gone. And we're very conscious of our role and requirements for everybody to play a role in coming up with long-term solutions. Our biggest fear, or what we experience the most, are again, TripAdvisor comments and what the visitors see and how that reflects upon our city, our community, but not only that, but just how Canada is managing the homeless file. It's not unique just to us or to Canada, but really, what are we doing, particularly in a market that experiences such cold winters, to deal with this in a humane way. So we're very conscious of it, but we're very involved, and I think we're going down the right path in certain areas to dealing with the mental health problems, the social housing problems and supportive housing issues, and it's just going to be a long-term play.
It certainly
unfortunately.
is. It certainly is, and we do speak about this issue a lot here on City News, and I appreciate your perspective a lot today. And I'm looking forward to Winterlude. I'm hoping that the city is a buzz for Winterlude, and we can invite the world to see the gem that you spoke about, Steve.
You know, what the response people give is amazing. It's the best advertising we can possibly give, and you know, social media puts us in real time. And when somebody's skating down the canal and they turn the corner and they see the backdrop of the Fairmont Chateau Laurier and Parliament and the NAC, it's just outstanding. It's very European, and it's a magic, you know, sort of a picture that can be shared worldwide, and people want to come.
Absolutely. Well, let's invite the world. Steve Ball, thank you so much. President of the Ottawa Gatineau Hotel Association. Learned a lot from Steve today. Thank you so much. When we come back, we're going to go into Quebec. We're going to speak with the owner of Le Petit Bar La Vigne. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Asselin and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, on the business lunch, we like to make our way around our whole region, and we wanted to go across the border into Quebec, into beautiful Chelsea, and spend some time today with Jean-François Bilodeau. How are you, Jean-François?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me, Sam.
Well, I'm so excited because one of our producers, Aaron, was at your beautiful bar recently, Le Petit Bar à Vin, and tell me a little bit about how this all got started.
Oh, well, it was actually it's a long story, but I'll keep it short for you. But it's my first actually I'll call it restaurant, but in the industry, because I've been talking about it for about 15 years, that I was dreaming of opening a wine bar, and through the travel and everything, and but of course you got serious job and you do other things, and but just before the pandemic, I really decided, okay, let's do it. If I have to do it, I don't want to wait until I'm 79. So I decided to go for it and give it a try, and found a perfect location in Chelsea with a great outdoor, and decided to open my wine bar there. So.
Well, and I hear it's absolutely beautiful, and Chelsea is one of the most beautiful parts of this area. Did that influence you as well in terms of location?
Of course, because I consider also spots in the cities, but or downtown, but the outdoor was so important. I also started with I started my journey with a wine trailer. Also going to a few events. I still have it, and I'll do more programming. But I needed some backyard and space to build a big patio and spend as much time outdoor as possible. And Chelsea. When you go through options like Chelsea, I was always coming. Top of mind, so it was very happy I found the perfect spot over there.
And tell me what makes your place so unique. Why should we visit?
Well, actually, the reason why I wanted to open a wine bar is through the travels. My travels, personal. I visited tons of wineries, and it's always that experience talking to the producers. When they let you taste their product, and they talk with so much passion about it and describing it, and this is what I wanted to recreate, to be able to talk about the wine, but having a bar that is welcoming, accessible, and no pretension there. Like when they say no stupid question, it's totally true. I get clients who are not into wine at all, and they make discoveries. So, and what's different also is that you try your wine before purchasing your glass of your bottle. Like actually, there wasn't the most popular item on the menu is the tasting. so people can go through 3, 5, or a different wine by the ounce. So instead of just having one glass or going through a long wine menu, where you end up most of the time picking what you already know or looking for the price, you can try a different wine. So if you come every week, you can easily taste 30 different wines during the month. So
I love that. I love that. And I'm actually heading to Chelsea for a couple nights at the end of the month, and I'm going to be staying at that Motel Chelsea, that new hotel. So I'm thinking to myself, hey, I need to pay a visit to Jean-Francois as well. I appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing about your passion and your bar, and I can tell the passion that you have for this. So congratulations.
No, thank you for having me again. And remember, Chelsea is only 10-15 minutes from downtown Ottawa. So anytime we'll be there to welcome you.
Look forward to it. Jean-Francois Bilodeau joining us today. La Petite Bar. We look forward to visiting there. Richard Southern's joining us now, our Queen's Park reporter. We're spending a lot of time with Richard these days because, Richard, there's lots to talk about.
There is, but I'd like to go to a bar with you too, Seth.
That would be fun.
Me along?
That would be fun, of course. Of course, you can come anytime.
All right. Well, if you're paying, I'll be there with bells on.
Oh, I see that caveat at the end. I see that. Of course, you've been busy today at Queen's Park. Tell us what the Premier's up to.
So, Premier spoke to the media for the second day in a row, Sam. He was just outside of Hamilton in Hannon, Ontario. And the big story today, I think, is, again, this green belt issue. Remember, late last year, the government announced that 7,400 acres of protected green belt, which the Premier in 2018 promised he wouldn't touch, was going to be made available for housing development. And it was later revealed that in September, some developers bought this land, and just weeks later, the government made its announcement about it being able to be developed, and these developers, they're ready to cash in on this. So there's been a lot of questions about who knew what, and, the OPP is looking at potentially launching an investigation. This morning, Sam, all three opposition leaders, the interim Liberal leader, the Green Party leader, the NDP leader, they put out a joint letter to Bonnie Lysyk, the Auditor General of Ontario, asking her to look at this matter, to look at the environmental impact that the Greenbelt sale might have. And, it's not every day we see parties come together like this, even though they are on one side of the aisle. So a notable letter. They're looking for Bonnie Lysyk to conduct a value for money audit, as well as looking at the environmental impact of the sale. Premier Ford was asked about the letter, and he's basically said, hey, we're very transparent about it, but we need to build homes. I mean, this has been the government's rationale with this. They want to build all these homes, 1.5 million homes in the next few years, and they need the Greenbelt to do it. So that's kind of what played out today, Sam.
It certainly is interesting watching this story closely. We have asked Minister Steve Clark to join us here on City News and talk a little bit about this. We know that, Bill 23, it's all wrapped up in that. We haven't, unfortunately, secured a time with the minister, but we're not going to stop asking, Richard.
No, absolutely not. The government has said, and the minister has said unequivocally, that he didn't let anyone know about this beforehand. But certainly there are a lot of questions that remain. You mentioned that particular bill, but the Greenbelt was opened up with a regulatory change at Queen's Park that didn't come up for a vote. It was just a change to regulations. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered here. Why were these developers buying this land just weeks before this announcement? Who knew what? The Premier didn't, again, address the allegations head on today, but just went on to talk about the need to build more housing.
Mm-hmm. We only have about a minute, Richard, but while I have you, of course, Bill 124, is there anything we've talked about more than Bill 124 between you and I? Let's talk about it just for another minute or so. The Premier, where's he sitting on Bill 124 today?
Yeah, he was asked about it again today, these internal government documents that were revealed that showed the government knew that this was leading to nurses leaving the profession. Ford again denied it today, and questioned his own government documents. He contends that it's not leading to a mass exodus of nurses. So interesting that he's just kind of flat out denying it. Yesterday he said Bill 124 is over, it's gone, which is not 100% accurate because the government's appealing this court ruling, which could subject about 30% of Ontario public sector unions to this wage restraint law for another 3 years going forward. So that's another issue the Premier is facing as we kick off the new year at Queen's Park, Sam.
Well, what would we do without you, Richard? We'd be lost. We'd be lost.
Well, I mean, let's go to the bar and we'll discuss the provincial issues further over a glass of vino.
We need a couple. Yeah, absolutely. Richard Southern joining us today, our Queen's Park reporter. Really appreciate his joining us today. He's very, very good to come on quickly with us. And we hope that you've learned lots today on the business lunch. And thanks for staying with us. We couldn't do what we do without you. So thanks for listening to City News. Stay with us all afternoon. Lock it in to City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.